All right, welcome. Today we are diving headfirst into ArcGIS Pro. This is Esri's beast of a desktop GIS software. And don't worry if you're brand new to this stuff, or maybe you're a GIS veteran coming over from a different program. Either way, we're going to get you comfortable and ready to roll. Okay, so here's what we've got on tap. We'll kick things off with a quick, what is ArcGIS Pro? Then, we'll see if your computer's ready for it. After that, a grand tour of the workspace. We'll hit some key concepts, I'll show you some awesome shortcuts, and finally, we'll look at how to get your amazing work out there for everyone to see. So let's start at the very beginning. What exactly is ArcGIS Pro? Well, to answer that, we first need to understand the fundamentals of GIS itself. So here's the deal. A GIS, or Geographic Information System, is way more than just a fancy map-making tool. Think of it like a smart database with a map as its face. It's all about connecting location data, the where, with all the descriptive info about that location, the what. That link right there is where the magic really happens. And this image, it's the perfect way to visualize it. I want you to imagine you're holding a stack of clear plastic sheets. On one sheet, you've drawn all the roads. On another, all the buildings. On a third, maybe where all your customers live. When you lay them all on top of each other, bam! Suddenly, you see patterns and relationships that were totally invisible before. That's the power of GIS. And that is exactly where ArcGIS Pro steps onto the stage. It's the application, the tool that lets you bring all those layers of geographic data together. It's your digital workbench for everything from mapping and visualizing to editing and deep dive analysis. Okay, so now you know what Pro is all about, but before you get all excited and hit download, we need to talk about one very important thing. Is your computer actually ready for this? And you really do need to ask this, because ArcGIS Pro isn't some lightweight app. It's a 64-bit, multi-threaded beast that's designed to use every bit of power your machine can give it. And trust me, when you get into 3D work or some heavy-duty analysis, you'll be glad for that power. So, let's take a look at the hardware. You can see the minimums here, and yeah, Pro will run on that, but honestly, you're going to want to aim for the recommended column. A smoother experience is an understatement. That extra RAM and especially a solid-state drive, they're absolute game changers. Yeah, that's not a typo. 32 gigabytes of RAM. That might seem like a lot, but it makes a night and day difference. If you're going to be wrangling huge data sets or flying through stunning 3D scenes, that RAM is what's going to keep things buttery smooth instead of, chugga-chugga. Of course, you'll need a license to drive this thing. The most common one these days is the named user license, which just ties into your ArcGIS online account. Super simple, but there are also options for a single-use license for one machine, or even a shared concurrent use license, though that one's being phased out. Okay, hardware and licensing, check. Now we get to the really fun part. Let's fire up ArcGIS Pro and take a look around the workspace. Now, fair warning, if you're coming from an older program, it's going to look a little different, but stick with me. It's actually super intuitive once you know your way around. And here it is. This is your command center. I know, it might look like a lot at first glance, but everything has its place. It's all been organized pretty logically to make sure your tools and your data are always just a click away. So let's do a quick flyby. Up top, you've got the ribbon. The cool thing about this is that the tools change depending on what you're doing. It's smart. Over here on the left, that's the contents pane. Think of it as your map's layer list. And on the right, we have the catalog pane. This is your file explorer, your one-stop shop for managing all the pieces of your project. Okay, a special shout out to all my ArcMap users out there. This slide is for you. Some of the things you're used to have just been renamed. For instance, that table of contents window you lived in, that's now called the contents pane. Same idea, new name. It's a simple translation guide. All right, now that we're familiar with the layouts, let's dig into a couple of really core ideas. Understanding these is fundamental to thinking in Pro. Okay, if you remember one thing, remember this. The project. The .aprx file. This is the absolute heart of ArcGIS Pro. Seriously. Think of it as a big organized box for your entire, project. No more separate map files, layout files, and scattered data. Here, your 2D maps, your 3D scenes, your data, your tools, your layouts, everything lives together in this one single container. It's a lifesaver for staying organized. And inside that project box, you'll mainly be working with two things, maps and scenes. It's pretty simple, really. A map is your classic, flat, 2D view. A scene, well, that's where things get three-dimensional. And the best part? You can have as many maps and scenes as you want inside one project, letting you look at your data from all sorts of angles. Now, let's talk about something that can trip people up but is so important: coordinate systems. This is basically the rule book that tells Pro how to place your data correctly on the Earth. Imagine the Earth as an orange. A geographic coordinate system uses angles, like latitude and longitude, to find a point on the surface of that orange. But what if you want a flat map? Well, a projected coordinate system is like peeling the orange and trying to flatten the peel out. It uses some fancy math to do that, and it lets you measure real-world distances in meters or feet. Getting this right is absolutely crucial for any analysis you do. Whew. Okay, enough with the theory. Let's learn how to work faster and smarter. I'm going to show you a few of my favorite must-know shortcuts that will seriously speed up your workflow. First up, map navigation. You're going to be zooming and panning around all the time, so these are worth memorizing. The plus and minus keys for zooming are great, but my personal favorite, holding down the C key. It temporarily switches you to the Explore tool, so you can pan around without having to switch tools on the ribbon. It's a huge time saver. And of course, we have the classics, the ones that are practically muscle memory, right? Copy, paste, undo, redo, they all work just like you'd expect. And please, make Control+S your best friend. Save your project, save it often. You'll thank me later. So, you've done the work, you've wrangled the data, you've made a beautiful, insightful map. Now what? Well, you've got to share it, right? ArcGIS Pro has some really powerful ways to get your work out of your desktop and into the world. You've got a few options here. You can bundle things up into what's called a package. A project package, for instance, zips up your entire project, maps, data, everything, into one neat little file, perfect for sending to a coworker. Or, and this is really cool, you can publish your work as a web layer. This pushes your data straight to the cloud, making it an interactive map that anyone can view in a web browser. No special software needed. You know, we've really just scratched the surface today, but hopefully you're feeling a lot more comfortable. You've got the lay of the land, you understand the core ideas, and you're ready to start your own journey with ArcGIS Pro. It's an incredibly powerful tool that puts a whole world of data at your fingertips. So I'll leave you with this one question. Now that you have the keys, what will you map first?